Are you about to start?
I'm about to start. We can start.
Okay,
That's the start. That's the start of the episode. Welcome everyone to Star Trek, our ever-continuing voyage through the episodes of Star Trek as we continue now with switching on to TNG and going to the episode that everyone skips, Code of Honor, Season 3. Joining me are Stars, Shy, and Big. You're joining us for a Star Trek on our voyage for TNG because you said, oh, Code of Honor, God, count me in for that one.
I regret everything.
Local whitest kid you know, Big McLeod Hughes, insisted on being included.
Yes. This is a controversial episode for a number of various reasons, which we're not going to touch on some parts of this because it's probably well known, but we may discuss it. So, take with that what we will. We're aware of things that may be discussed during this episode. But, however, would you like some interesting facts about Code of Honor, just to start us off with? So this was written by Catherine Powers and Michael Barron. So I'll talk about Michael Barron first. This was the only thing he ever wrote and would ever write ever again. He doesn't do anything else. Apart from this, at least according to IMDb, he does nothing else. This is it. This is the pinnacle. He wrote this and went,
"That's a pseudonym.
Done it, mate. Done it.
That's a pseudonym. A pseudonym. Someone didn't want to put their name on it."
The other writer, Catherine Powers, has done a few episodes. Well, this is the only thing she ever did for Star Trek, for a start, ever.
Can I come back? No.
But she wrote quite a few. We were talking during the watch along about, this feels like a TOS script, and I'm pretty sure this isn't a TOS script because this was written by Catherine Powers and done the teleplay done by as well. She also wrote for Stargate quite a lot as well. And there is an episode of Stargate, and I'm going to read you the tagline. And this is from IMDb as well. So, while exploring a world populated by Mongol descendants, Captain Carter is abducted as a wife of a local warlord. Does that sound familiar?
Look.
This is one of a fetish.
All great writers recycle their great stories, right? Aaron Sorkin has a blackout in every single series. Like, there's a blackout in West Wing, there's a blackout in Newsroom, there's a blackout in Studio 60. It's a thing. So
stop just trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
Fetch your wife happen.
Yeah, no. Some people love the trope of the blackout. Other people like a very different kind of blackout.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
Okay, so I have to
go on.
You go. I'm boiling on this point.
That episode also was very heavily criticised among Stargate fans. I think that's an early season 1 episode. Yeah, funnily that weird, isn't it? I don't think she did a lot after that either. This was directed by this was directed by Russ Mabry, but halfway through filming he left. So Les Landau took over. This is a good start for an episode. You've got writing credit. One is a copycat. The other just declares it his pinnacle of work and retires into obscurity. And the director goes, "No, fuck this." Funnily enough, though, Russ Mabry was the one responsible for bringing in the African theming. So there you are. He had
to go back to his plantation in Kentucky.
Thanks, Russ.
Yeah. Okay. So I have to say this, right?
He left halfway through.
Yeah, he left completely voluntarily. Yeah. So I have to bring up a fact, and it's we don't want to touch on the racism because it's so obvious. It's such an obviously bad idea, all of this. But I feel like it's worth mentioning that Code of Honor is that particular kind of 80s racism, where it's 1980s. We live in a post-racism. We're so far beyond that point. We solved that back in the 60s with civil rights type thing. Blindness to what you've produced. And I feel like every decade has their own flavor of racism that kind of manifests in different ways. Some of them are really oblique about it. Some of them are really obvious. Amos and Andy, Black and White Minstrel Show. Other ones are just so condescending and smug about it, and they don't even recognize their own biases. And that's what I think makes Code of Honor particularly just if I had to show someone what the 1980s thought, post-racial America looked like, I'd be like, watch Code of Honor, and this is what they thought was acceptable to put on primetime TV. It's just how do you lack the self-awareness? Sorry, Shy, go.
No, I was just gonna say the problem with believing that you live in a post-racial society is then you automatically feel free to just appropriate any elements of culture with no representation behind the scenes of that culture, which is, you know, the main, like, one of the many problems with that sort of cultural appropriation. You know, they were probably like, in their heads, they're like, oh, you know, we did the Roman culture, we did gangster culture. This is just another culture we're going to bring with Hodgkin's law to this to this new alien planet, and it just
and then also you feel like you have no qualms with belittling some other culture with just total impunity, because it's like, well, we're so evolved, we're so above all this. Look at all these, you know, backward people, and let's get a good laugh at them or something like that. It just,
it does definitely.
Well, yeah, because that's the final line, isn't it? That has that TOS like, you know, line about, you know, oh, you guys may have more advanced technology, but we have more civilized behavior. Guess what? That shit don't fly when you've just spent like 45 minutes going through every badly codified trope about quote unquote black behavior. Like, it's like you say, behind the scenes, I very much doubt that there was a single like non-white face in that writer's room, in that direct. I refuse to believe it. And it's like, we also noticed that, hey, Michael Dorn isn't on screen at all during this episode, despite his name being in the opening credit. I bet you took one look and was like, I'm sorry, I'm out. You can't. And they were like, you know what?
I am ill.
Klingon flu. Yeah, no, just I feel bad that LeVar. He probably, like, you know, it's like that bit in what was it, in Starship Mine, when everyone's trying to get out of going to Hutchinson's freaking like reception, and then, like, you know, Worf gets in on it first, and then Geordi tries. He's like, I can't excuse my entire senior staff. Everyone tried to get out of this episode, but only Michael Dorn was fast enough to get out the starting gate. Oh, Jesus. Where do we even start with this, guys? Like, this is such a...
Well, should we skip the obvious things and go to the other problematic, ridiculous things in this episode? Like the fact that they started, like, victim blaming Yar for getting kidnapped. Where Picard's like, did you do anything to encourage him? Did you, like, unzip your pant leg a little higher on your boots this week?
Slightly higher than regulation.
Yeah.
Are you wearing a slightly more provocative shade of lipstick? It's like, what? That wouldn't be appropriate for Kirk to say in, like, on the Enterprise, let alone Picard.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And then Troy chimes in with, but you did find him attractive, didn't you? Didn't you? Don't wait for the translation, answer the question! And she's like, yes, kind of. Yes, I did.
Yeah, it's just like every time that aspect of the things, like how it felt for Yar, would come up, it was completely irrelevant. It didn't belong there. And
you know what? That's baffling, because her entire backstory is focused around male sexual violence.
Yeah.
And you don't think that's relevant. Like, by all means, like, if this were like, here's the thing, right? Is the people like to give Star Trek Discovery and, like, some of the newer Star Treks a little bit guff for going a little bit too dark, right? For, like, you know, it's almost a dystopian society in some ways. But, like, I feel like if you tried to do an episode like this in Discovery, none of this would be about, like, ridiculous tribal, like, stereotypes. It would be about, like, hey, let's talk about trauma and how that manifests and how you can be triggered by all kinds of weird bullshit you didn't account for, and you could have an actual conversation about that. But, you know, just this is a prime example of, hey, we created an interesting character, you know, based off of, like, so one of us in the writing room saw aliens and thought, let's steal Vasquez. And then they, you know, race changed her and mixed around the concept, and then, like, watered it down to the point where, yeah, it's a backstory, but it doesn't play into anything.
No.
Anything.
They changed her from being a Jewish woman?
No, she was going to be Lieutenant Vasquez. I think that was actually the name.
Right, yes.
Yeah, and then they cast a white actress with blonde hair and blue eyes.
Yeah, well, just like the most meaningful way that characterization came back was talking about a completely other character 4 seasons later.
Yeah. It really does no service to Yar that the only episode I could think of where she gets a massive focus is one where she's victimized and it doesn't even play into her backstory about being victimized, and it's just such a disservice.
Do you think this was the catalyst for Denise Crosby wanting to leave? Do you think this is one of the ones she just went, oh no?
Well,
All that and Rick Burns.
We're on
sure
episode
it didn't
3.
help.
Bro, in episode 3, right, what has Yar gotten to do? She has been frozen by Q. She has been, like, put under a sex virus despite being a secure officer and, like, had sex with the android and made a butt of a joke. And now episode 3, we're getting, like, kidnapped by, by stereotypes. Like, I would be screaming up my agent, like, yo, what the fuck did you put me on here? Like...
My dad's Bing Crosby, for God's sake.
It's beginning to look a lot like racism.
Okay. Shai, as the elder statesman here, you watched this in syndication when it first came out, didn't you?
Oh god.
Yeah, and even in middle school, I was like, this is really like on the nose. This is just like cringily stereotype. Like, oh come on, this is not good. This is not good. I mean, it would be akin to, what I would watch sort of like Asian, like kung fu tropes all throughout, say like the last century or so. But I mean, yeah, I was like, oh, I get they're trying to have some diversity of casts and stories, but it was just so heavy-handed.
It's interesting because Star Trek, traditionally with the TOS has been, progressive with the racial diversity and handling it quite well in terms of like Uhura and Sulu to an extent. And
well, I was thinking, like in Court Martial.
Well.
In Court Martial, you have like Commodore Stone, you have like Commodore Mendez, you have these men of power who are played by people of color. You have Richard Daystrom, who's like a tragic figure who's treated with utmost sympathy for their skin color. Then you get to fucking Code of Honor, and it's like, why have we taken like 40 years progress backwards and 20 years of forwards? It's so ridiculous.
Because they thought projecting it on a different culture gave them license to be a caricature about it. I mean, Up the Long Ladder is still. We're still gonna get there.
That's
So it's
yeah.
But that at least that's
Space
Irish.
Irish.
Anyway, sorry. We're on episode 3 of the Next Generation. And a lot of people talk about, we've spoken about before, like, Discovery getting a lot of shit online for what it is, and people like people don't, and people remember talking about, oh, you should go back to the old BBS days when the Next Generation aired out, and people's complaints about that. And after watching this, you can see why. If the Next Generation aired today with the same 80, if we had the internet,
it would get cancelled.
Yeah. Well, not just it would get cancelled, but people talking about it online, going, "What is this shit?" It would be as lauded, as Discovery was during its first couple of seasons, or not lauded, the other way around, criticized heavily,
reviled,
reviled, exactly, by the certain people. Like, but this is worse in a way because like there's no real silver lining here. You watch these first 3 episodes, okay, Karen Farpoint fairly decent despite the flaws. Naked Now and Code of Honor, what's next? Jesus Christ, I bet I don't want to watch anymore. Like at this point, you wouldn't. It's only experienced people kind of. If someone say, "Oh, I want to get in the Next Generation," you're just like, just skip the first 2 seasons, go to season 3. Then
you know what?
Back.
You know what? I actually have to say something, right? You put like this up here with Naked Now. I actually have to. I wasn't here for the Naked Now retrospective, so I don't know what you guys gave that in terms of writing. Fucking Naked Now shits on this from a high height.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like Naked Now is a bad episode, right? It's a literal rewrite of a TOS episode. It's got cringeworthy elements in there, but there's stuff that happens. Like there is a dilemma. There is a sense of a wider federation in that, like you see another ship for one of you first few times. There's a little bit of character work with Tasha. It's not great. It's a little bit unfortunate if you think about the implication. Data, gets his first brush with like proper humanity. You get a bit of actual development with Crusher and Picard. Here, there's nothing. There's not even like.
Wesley gets some progress. He gets to step on the bridge.
Data gets to crack a couple of jokes. That's the extent of.
Everyone's having fun in Naked Now.
Yeah,
that's the part. Everyone is so stone-faced in this Stewart can usually
not know what to do, does he? He's
spin
there
gold out of like dirty. Yeah, he can usually spin something out of dirty straw, but here he's just reciting lines and kind of like
everyone's just been done dirty. Yeah, it's just like there's nothing to do here. And that's the thing is like even in Naked Now there's more action because like you have the opening stinger of like, oh, they just blew themselves out of the airlock. That's actually a problem. Oh, that's like an exploding star. That's a problem. Here, The problem is like ostensibly a ticking clock of we got to get the vaccine, and then at the end of the fucking episode they leave
so
at
mad.
warp 3.
We're
I'm
so mad about
sorry.
this.
I'm so angry about it.
Well, and that's the other thing too. It's like if they did this episode maybe later on, you would get like communication from the planet that's got the disease. You would see a couple of signs of what the stakes are. You would feel the ticking clock more. It's like you get like one scene from Crusher in this where
all she does is say things.
Yeah. It's just it's almost a bottle episode, except for there's the stuff downstairs, but it's treated like a bottle episode for the stuff on the ship, where it's just like, what can we do to save the most money possible?
Yeah,
in episode 3.
No, we already spent all the money on the big space jellyfish. Sorry.
I'm writing away the license for all these naked people in the naked now. Yeah.
Oh jeez. So I feel like this is going to be the hardest thing. I usually leave this to Idle, but I'm genuinely curious, gentlemen. Is there a single person who you think puts in like a good performance, or who manages to pull a rabbit out of a hat and like acquit themselves despite everyone else like just sucking a lemon in this episode?
I'm going to go the left.
It's Spiner.
That's true, actually.
Yeah, because his actions, he fortunately gets to interact with the main story about the least. So most of his dialogue is just kind of one-offs and stuff. So his little bits of character development where he is becoming self-aware of how the way he speaks and conducts himself reads to other members of the crew, that is actually something that's good. And plus, Brent Spiner's facial expressions are second to none. Most instances. So that would be my pick for sure.
I think Crosby's actual performance is okay. Like, it's actually one of her more textured and nuanced. Yeah, it's just on a terrible script. Like, even when she's talking about her sort of mixed emotions with being attracted to the lieutenant. This is so terrible, I can't even say it. With her mixed emotions of being attracted to the lieutenant.
You're my friend and you tricked me.
Right. Despite being, like, at the end when the matriarch offers lieutenant off to her, she's like...
It would be complicated.
Like, there was a little bit of, like, subtlety there. And, of course, my favorite moment in the episode, which I'll repeat when we ask this question later, is Denise Crosby is stretching at her. Just, like, getting ready. Like, you don't see that. You don't see people preparing for anything in Star Trek. They're just ready to go. But she was doing
it's
like
the
a
Aikido
stretch.
scene. It's done in a very kind of like, oh, this is what people do. They stretch. Oh, this is what people do. They do Aikido in their bathrobes. Like, it's all very presented out there in a kind of like, this is TV. Get it done. Come on, we've got budgets.
It's a visual medium. Yeah. What about you, Idle? Who do you think manages to turn water into wine here?
I'm not going to say water into wine, but I'm going to say the absolute baseline here is what they did their job. And they did it to the character spec, and they did it well. Was Will Wheaton? He played Wesley. He played Wesley well. He was an annoying little shit in this episode, and he was there, and that's what he was there to do. He didn't have a problematic script to work against. He just had to stand in the turbo lift, looking out, shine, go sit on the bridge, and yeah. I
have a huge problem with that. How many entrances are to the Enterprise bridge? Is it 3 or 4? Are there 3 or 4 turbo lifts?
Yeah, how many cameras?
Plenty, thank you. Plenty.
But he's taking up one of them, just like taking it up, just so he can
there's
steer.
A queue of like 5 turbo lifts underneath.
Yeah, there's a head. This is the headquarters. This is the brain center of this entire Galaxy class ship. He just decided he's going to take up one of the turbo lifts.
Wesley is that asshole who like stands around in the middle of a hallway, like they take you at space having conversations. Like, can I?
Yeah.
Do you think he gets
these samples are perishable?
All the buttons, just like it stops at every floor.
He's Wesley Crusher, not Kevin McAllister.
Oh, okay,
right?
Sorry.
That would be good.
All right.
Starship
that's the parody waiting to happen. Yeah, I'm alright. Well, that's Starship.
They have that. It's the game.
That too. Yeah, they've done it a few times. For me, I'd have to split. I think that LeVar Burton does the best he can, considering he's like. I can't even imagine how embarrassing it must have been to go to work and have to look at this like pantomime.
He comes from royalty in that sense because he was Roots. Yeah, Roots was the very definition of.
That's why he was like
dramatic television. It was addressing those concerns with. Yeah.
That's why I was like, I'm immune to this. I was in Roots. This can't affect me. I'm Teflon
I
right
am
now.
rubber, you are glue. Yeah. And you know what? I actually have to give it up to Jesse Lawrence Ferguson, who plays Lutan, because guess what? Lutan is a fucking awful character. But Idol said this, and I'm like, you know what? It's true. He does at least have a certain degree of natural charisma.
He's a
He
charming
does
guy.
at least like know how to cock an eye and be a bit smirky and be an asshole.
Okay. Have you ever seen that gif of like there's the cat doing the wobble and there's the guy, the black guy doing a little wobble? Look at the
Shaq, Shaquille O'Neal.
Is that Shaquille O'Neal? I don't know who that is, but that is Lutan. That is Lutan in gif form. There's just him going, just little smirks and occasional outrage. That's him.
He does manage to twirl his mustache without even having a mustache. He shaved it off with Geordie's blue Jello cube, and he's somehow still twirling it throughout the entire episode.
And guess what? We make fun of it all the time. We shook it. It's an awful lion, but you will have no vaccine and no Lieutenant Yar. Guess what? That's natural projection. That man is I would believe he is a trained actor. He's doing it. He understood the assignment. It's just that the assignment was absolute garbage.
Oh yeah,
right?
the guests and supporting actors are doing it well. On big side.
Yeah.
Well, I just know you can't say that he didn't step up to his mark and own that. So, I mean, you have to give some credit for that.
Yeah. It's true.
Okay, let's go on to... Right, this is going to be interesting, because I want to know best and worst moments. So I know the latter is going to be a struggle, so let's go for the best moment. Sorry, let's go for best moments. Let's start with our guest this week, Big.
The opening and end credits, because the TNG theme is awesome.
They are very good.
Damn, that's gonna be my pick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, beyond that, I guess the scene with Geordie and Data again.
Damn it! That actually was gonna be my pick. You fuck.
Yeah, I think that's everyone's pick because that's the only good pick.
Because it has nothing to do with the plot.
Yeah.
And it was the actual moment of most character development in the entire episode. So yeah, I'm sorry I stole it from everybody, but yeah, if you make me pick something else, I don't know what I pick. So you guys have your work cut out for you, and you have my pity.
All right, go on, Shy.
All right.
I mean, I like your
I need to hear the worst.
And I actually like the Aikido hologram scene. Like the stunt guy that got as the hologram actually knows martial arts. You could tell right away. Like he's using actual, it's not Aikido necessarily, but he's doing so. And Yara gets to show off a little bit. And Disney Scrowsby, she's not Michelle Yeoh, but she sells it pretty well. She sells it pretty well. So yeah, those are my best moments. Are we gonna wait to do a round of worst moments?
So. We'll do a round of best and
okay.
a round of
Well,
worst.
she's like that one that they bring a celebrity on to like a WWE thing, and they teach them like one move, and you just practice it enough that you can pull that one thing off kind of convincingly. That's her.
Go on, Stars. Best.
Oh God.
The bit that made you go, this was good. I feel nourished for this scene.
No, I felt drained. I came into this with a headache, and I feel it even more acutely now. God. Okay, I'd say probably the episode, the part of the episode where Data and Geordie beam down to assess the weapons cabinet. And they have a tiny little bit of interplay with Picard about, assessing as to what, and then, Data looking like, oh, okay, yes, that's what we're doing here. Like, there's a little that in a more competent episode, that would be a funny, thing. And if they were more into the groove of their characters, I could see that being a fun little bit. But it's more just a case of, yes, that is competent. You did not fuck it up, I suppose, because again, it has as little to do with interacting with the stereotypes as possible. Idol, your best moment. Have fun.
I don't think. I think my best moment is the same as Biggs. Like, that's the only thing. The Data Geordie thing is the best part of the episode. Like, when he corners him, when Geordie tries to escape and he corners him, he literally runs in front of him and goes, I'm going to tell this joke, motherfucker. And, like, backs him into a corner. It's like, oh shit, we trapped the blind man on the with an android.
He corners him without his visor.
Yeah.
He corners Geordie without his visor and refuses to let him.
Geordie's like got a panic instinct whenever Data tells a joke. He doesn't think,
Oh,
I need to
no.
either leave the room or grab my visor. He thinks, I need to leave the room.
You know what? Geordie's thinking in his brain, if I just like dial up the intensity on this razor, I can end it all right now.
Yeah. So sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna have to cop out this week and say like I've got to copy one because I can't think of it.
Coward!
Yeah. You know what? Maybe there's like some crushes things, but there's nothing else redeeming about this episode. Okay, let's go for the real meat of it. Big, give us your worst moment.
Oh, worst moment.
So
Probably
many to
the
choose
line. Probably the line that I aped a minute ago. You're my friend and you tricked me, because that is that it comes out of nowhere, in that it didn't feel like it was a setup. It was just Troy talking, and it just, I don't know. And that whole, we talked about the victim blaming idea, and that Denise Crosby's reading of that just takes it up to 11 just immediately. It's just, I don't know. It's like the worst soap opera type dialogue stuff that you've ever heard. So I'll go with that.
And next time on Days of Our Lives. Yeah, no, basically.
Yeah.
Shy.
I mean, it's the appropriation across the board, but just really their first appearance when they show up in the freaking shiny, like sparkly, pseudo African wear. It's just.
Yeah, the knockoff Sinbad gear.
It's so funny because you watch a movie that actually has a proper like cultural homages, like Black Panther, right? And every outfit you're like I need every bit of clothes in this movie. I need everything Chadwick was.
Are you saying
was
Code of
wearing
Honor died so Black Panther could live?
Well, no, Code of Honor set us back so far that it took 40 years to make to make Black Panther.
You're probably not wrong.
The costuming director was like, we need somewhere in between MC Hammer and Aladdin.
Oh,
that's
that era, isn't it?
Get me that.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Right, yeah, just from
rolling
up the carpet.
Yeah,
rolling up the carpet initially, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
All right, stars.
Oh God. It's like I'm looking at a field and there's a ton of live grenades. And I have to pick which one I want to throw myself on. I would have to say it's the attempt, the shitty attempt at a TOS joke about civilized behavior at the end, because it's just so smug and condescending, and it's like when you're in a bar and someone's told a racist joke and they like nudge you in. It's like, no, this isn't funny. Nothing about this is funny. You should feel bad. And like, I bet you that guy probably like turned around and spat on the set after he was done, because God, how dare you make me read that line? Ugh. It's just so up its own ass about how bad it is. So
yeah,
awful.
it's just the Eurocentric, like really outdated concept of the noble savage, right? All these other cultures, they're so much, more wild and primitive than we are, but there's a nobility in their savagery that we can learn from. Oh God, it's so terrible.
Tumbling.
Idle. Which grenade do you pick?
I just remembered actually my favorite bit as well. My favorite bit is actually when they're having the fight and the gauntlet gets thrown off of Lieutenant White, hits that one guy, he takes it off, he notices the small piece of jam that's on his chest and goes, and then he falls over.
You know, the one he did.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably my favourite bit of the episode, but it probably was not intentionally so. Worst bit is aside from all what we've mentioned throughout most of the episode. If I'm going to be the outsider here, like I think like the moment that when Tasha Yar got abducted, and then instead of jumping into action, they fired about 24 torpedoes at the planet, had 3 conferences, and still did nothing. There was a lot of this episode was quite boring, really. Like, we know TNG has its focus on like a lot of conferences, a lot of talking. Usually that's done in quite a dynamic way that keeps it interesting, especially if you're into the more philosophical or scientific side of things. But they just sat around talking about nothing for quite a deal of the time. Talked about the culture of the planet, then they had an advert break, came back, and Riker had a joke. Data was a bit confused, and we're still not on the planet. It took a long time to do anything. I feel like there was a lot of like spinning wheels going on here. Just like, we've got another, like, the writer, was it Catherine Powers, was like, well, they've had their fight. Yeah, we've still got 40 minutes of the episode left. Like, I'll talk about it for a bit. I don't know. Yeah, that's probably
that was a thing I didn't remember about this episode. Is that Lieutenant abducts Yar, and then they immediately just go to torpedoes. They're just like popping torpedoes off in the atmosphere.
They essentially give Lutan a celebratory fireworks display for his kidnapping. It's like, oh, well done, Lutan. Wow, look, love the show. Well done.
They cost about $3 million each, those torpedoes.
Yeah, I know, right? Like
don't worry, we live in a moneyless future. It's completely fine. We can waste as many of those as you want. Meanwhile, Voyager, like 10 years from now, it's like we could have used those torpedoes.
Yeah.
Voyager's like limited supply of torpedoes.
Now then, Voyager just fires shuttles at people. All right, I think it is time, Stars. I'm eagerly awaiting your rating for this week.
All right. Gentlemen, I need to know how many obscure Earth languages called French out of 10 you would like to rate this shit pile of an episode.
Big, go on.
Can you give it anything other than a 0?
You give it what you
want. I have an idea.
There is nothing redeemable about this whatsoever. I think it. I cannot give it a rating that conveys any sense of approving of it in any form or fashion. So, bagel.
0. Big old fat 0.
I'll give it a 2. It's saving grace. Its saving grace is that it's not a clip show.
You have a point there.
Yeah.
I will say what happens in what happens in Shades of Grey before the clips start is probably more interesting than what happens in this entire
it's way more interesting. Absolutely. But it's it's a clip show, and it's like, oh, you can't fool me. You tried to trick me.
You thought I had plot. Clip show. I am going to give this a -5.
Oh my gosh! I don't. Can we do minus numbers?
Because not only is this a bad episode, not only is this irredeemable, not only is there not a nugget of goodness in this episode, I think this did irreparable harm to Star Trek. In that it makes it hard to recommend TNG to watch from the start. The fact that this is the episode that Netflix chucks you into with its video preview when you start up TNG. The fact that this is still, like, part of the canon. The fact that, like, they had to sit and endure this for however many days they were filming. It is an actual net detriment to Star Trek as a franchise, as, like, a part of culture, as an entity. Star Trek was harmed by this episode, so I'm going to give it a -5.
Wow.
I'm sorry, I can't give.
I feel like the Hobbits in the pub at that one point, and they're getting the pints. Like, you could do negative numbers. Didn't even think of that. I'm doing them in negatives now.
Fuck it. I came up with the ratings. I'm making it -5.
I'll allow it. I'm going to give it a 1, a pure 1. I like the Data and Geordie scene, and that's it. Like, that's the redeemable part. Like, it gives their relationship a little bit of breeding ground. You kind of see the genesis of them being friends, and that's you can watch that part of the episode and then just bugger off and then carry on with the next. Like,
I forget that shaving scene is even part of this episode.
Yeah,
because it has nothing to do with anything.
Otherwise, I would have given this a 0. But yeah,
and it's the first time that they let Wesley on the bridge, but you can debate whether or not that's...
he's on in the pilot.
Yeah.
Oh, he is? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, because he notices that Picard's readout is, like, going nuts. And he's like, oh, you got a thing. He's like, get the hell off my bridge. So, second time.
Oh, okay.
But Sundere, Captain Picard is now like, you can come on the bridge, I guess. Bumper Parker.
Acting ensign. Yeah, I think that probably wraps up this controversial episode. I've actually kept a list now of our previous ratings, and I've averaged up our ratings as well. So the average for this, you might like to know, is a -0.5. So it is our worst rated show so far, and probably will be.
It's gonna hold.
I don't know, because Shades of Grey.
I can't think of.
Shades of Grey is my least favorite.
It's your least favorite.
Yeah.
I can't think of any worse episode than this. I actually can't. There are some bad ones. Like, even Turnabout Intruder is entertaining for watching Shatner pretending to be a woman in the worst possible way. But
in a completely different way, let He Who Is Without Sin from DS9 is
because that's a character assassination.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's in a completely different way.
Yeah.
So does that?
That's the
Oh,
one
it's
where
the
they
one
go
where,
to-
Ryza, where Worf becomes a terrorist.
That's
where
that's
Worf
really
tries
holds
to
up his
destroy us.
Okay, that's going to wrap it up for us.
But that's-
Thank you for watching our Star Trek Trek. We will be back in a couple of weeks' time for the next episode, which I believe will probably be yesteryear from TAS, but we're yet to decide. Thank you, Big
nice.
Shy and Stars, for joining us. We will see you next time. Ta-ra.